And welcome to Midwest City Council for May 22nd, 2018. Thank you for being here. Now call this meeting to order. We've got some special guests with us tonight I want to recognize from the Telstar Boys and Girls Club. They're going to be assisting us during the consent agenda of our agenda. So with that being said, I would ask Mr. Lyons to come down and offer the invocation. And Mr. Burns will be leading us in the pledge. Please stand.
Please bow with me. Our Father in heaven, we come before thee in this beautiful evening, grateful for this opportunity to gather together and exercise democracy in this great land that we live in. Father, we ask thee to bless us with thy beloved Spirit, that we might make righteous decisions tonight in the betterment of our community and on behalf of our citizens, and that we might put any personal biases aside, that we might see through, and that we might improve our community and do the things that are in all of our best interests. Father, we ask thee to bless our employees in safety tonight, that as they work in this community, that thou watches over them, and bless us all in safety in this evening as we travel home, that we may do so in safety. And these things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
May be seated. We have a few things to get out of the way. We'll start off with the certificates for the dumpsters, and then we'll go from there. A few months ago, we asked input from the art departments of our middle schools to design some dumpsters for us with environmental and conservatism as a theme. And we've got 3 of them parked out in front of our building that really turned out well. So I would like to, in each of the middle schools, sent us several entries, and the best 3 are out front. So I would like to call down Tiffany Woods, Jas West, and Jarman Middle School Art Club. Come on down. And I butchered everybody's name, didn't I? No?
We're the art clubs.
You are the art club. Well, this is Jarman Junior High School, or Jarman Middle School is now. I'm aging myself here. The art club from Jarman. Thank you guys very much. Oh, we're doing the pics. He's a separate one. Trash. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, this is Chase West from Carl Albert Middle School, and he's one of the awardees as well. Monroney? Okay, we will make sure that she gets this. We also have some proclamations to do tonight. And Mr. Street, This is Paul Street. He's the Assistant Director of Public Works Administration here at the city. And we're going to recognize you.
All right.
Or your
At least
department.
yeah, I said the people that do the work. That's exactly right.
If you're not familiar with the umbrella of Public Works, they're the ones that make sure you get clean water, make sure the bad stuff gets flushed away, and all that stuff that nobody sees but certainly complains if it isn't there. So, whereas May 20th through 26th, 2018 is Public Works Week. The theme is Power of Public Works, which honors the vital contribution public works professionals make every day, and it invites the public to celebrate their quiet dedication and indispensable influence in our way of life. Whereas public work infrastructure, facilities, and services are vital to the importance to sustainable communities and to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Midwest City. And whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of all public works employees or professionals who are responsible for and must plan, design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation services, water supply, treatment, solid waste systems, and public buildings and facilities essential to serve our citizens. And whereas it is important in the public interest of all citizens to gain a knowledge and maintain a progressive interest in understanding the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities, and to learn and visit more about our Public Works Division on our website. Therefore, I, Matt Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2018 as Public Works Appreciation Week.
So, appreciate you very much.
Now you haven't, until you crawled down in a 15-foot ditch at minus 20 degrees to fix a broken water main, or done the same thing in 200 degrees in the summer fixing a sewer main, you haven't lived. And I've gone out and watched these guys work. They do a wonderful job of maintaining our infrastructure. And again, if you see them out there, please thank them for all they do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you very much.
We did not get a picture. We'll do a selfie.
Yeah, I don't know. That may not work. I got a lot of glare.
Between your head and my glasses.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate you.
This is another special one. You guys come on up here with me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Boys and Girls Club from Telstar Elementary. Whereas the Telstar Boys and Girls Club, in operation since 2015, is a part of the Boys and Girls Club of Oklahoma County. Whereas Boys and Girls Clubs are the forefront of implementing youth programs that teach success in academics, health, and along with building outstanding character and citizenship among those who are participating. Whereas the Telstar Boys and Girls Club promotes the Torch Club, where members are developed socialization, problem solving, communication, goal setting, and decision-making skills. And whereas youth work together to plan and implement activities in 4 areas: service to the club, community, education, health and fitness, and social recreation. And whereas positive group experiences help youth cultivate good character and effective leadership traits so they can become civically engaged and caring citizens in the community. And whereas the city of Midwest City values our youth as one of our greatest resources, and whereas the young people of Midwest City, Oklahoma, will one day become tomorrow's leaders, and whereas the Telstar Boys and Girls Club is to be applauded for fostering future leaders and the democratic process throughout their leadership program, I, Matt Dukes, therefore proclaim Telstar Boys and Girls Club Day on May 22nd, 2018. Thank you for being here. And now, I'd like for you to go up on the horseshoe and get behind each one of the councilmen as we go through our agenda.
Jane, would you like to say anything?
Hi, I'm Jane Sutter. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Oklahoma County, and I just want to say thank you to the City Council for supporting our work with the Boys and Girls Club. We've done a lot of great things at Telstar. This year we built a Kaboom playground there. The city really stepped up when we had the teacher walkout so that we could serve kids all day long at the city community center. So I just mainly want to say thank you to all of you and your support. Thank you very much.
So next year, can you bring somebody to sit in the city manager spot?
Please, please do.
He's young, because he started young. He can stay with us for years.
There you go.
Well, come on up. Right here. Get up there. All right.
Can you read that? No? Okay, I'll read it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move into our consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the council, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any one item proposed does not meet with the approval of all council or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in regular order. The chair would entertain a motion.
Say move to amend, move to approve. So speaking in the microphone.
Motion made. Second.
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 I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? With that being said, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
No, that's him.
You're representing Ward 4. Any abstentions?
Do you abstain also?
Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Ian Smith, keep up all the good work. Thank you for coming up today. We're just gonna let you guys go home now. I said, I did vote aye. And nay, obviously.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move into the discussion items of our agenda and move ahead with discussion item number 1.
I've got to remember next year that if we have a tough agenda item, I'm going to wait to put it on the consent item when we have the Telstar Boys and Girls Club come visit us. They got right through it. It would have been approved. Yes. So the first discussion item is PC 1947, public hearing with discussion consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from R6 single-family residential to C3 community commercial for the property described as a part of the southwest quarter of Section 12, Township 11 North, Range 2 West, located at 2500 South Douglas Boulevard. Mr. Harless?
This is a rather simple rezoning request to C3. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval. This is on the east side of Douglas. I think most of you will recognize it on the north side of Sonic and the south side of Top Tier Tactical. Be glad to answer any questions from the staff report.
Is the applicant in the audience? Could you please come up and give us your name and address?
Chris and Amber Webster. We're from Costa Mesa, California.
You had a long trip.
We did.
Well, we should make them work for this then, shouldn't we? Have you had a chance to read the staff report?
Yes, we have.
Do you have any questions or concerns about any
No.
comments in the staff report?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Any
Motion to-
questions? Hearing none.
Motion to approve.
This is a public hearing. We do public
This
hearing.
is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have anything to discuss on this particular item? Hearing none, again, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thanks for being here.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so
Thank
much.
you. We enjoyed it.
Next item is PC 1948, discussion and consideration of approval of the preliminary plat of Johnson Homestead, described as a part of the northwest quarter of Section 7, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, located at 10433 Southeast 21st Street. Mr. Harless?
Yes, this is a preliminary plat. It's a fairly simple one. It ensures that the city gets all the easements and rights of way and improvements that are required with the platting process. This is between 19th and 21st Street. Creates 4 lots. Anywhere, 3 of them are about 3/4 of an acre, and the large one is about 2.3 acres. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval.
Is the applicant in the audience? Could you come up and give us your name and address?
Name's Byron Johnson. Address is 10433 Southeast 21st Street here in Midwest City.
Have you, Mr. Johnson, have you had a chance to review the staff report?
Yes, sir, I have.
Any questions or comments regarding the requirements, or?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay.
Billy, was there any water or sewer that need to be extended to that property, or is it?
Those will be completed at the time of before the final plat is approved. So those improvements have to be installed.
Okay.
I think there is public water in front of along 19th and 21st. I believe there will be a sanitary sewer line extension that will have to be accommodated.
Yeah, you can see on the development plan here that for the sewer to the back of the lots 2, 3, and 4, and it extends down the side, lot 1.
I'd like to make a motion
Any
to
further
approve.
discussion on this particular item?
Second.
Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thanks for being here, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Next item.
This is PC 1949, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of an ordinance to redistrict from R6 single-family detached residential and C3 community commercial and I2 moderate industrial to a planned unit development governed by the I2 moderate industrial district, and a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan from OR/office retail to COMM, commercial, for the property described as a tract of land lying in the southwest quarter of Section 12, Township 11 North, Range 2 West of the Indian Meridian, City of Midwest City, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, located at 9209, 9213, and 9233 Southeast 29th Street. Mr. Harless?
Yes, sir. This is a assemblage of property that the applicant has assembled off of Oak and 29th Street. It's multiple zoning districts to a PUD. He's in hope to accomplish of putting a Midwest City collision center there, and so he's requesting the rezoning. The applicant did request at the Planning Commission and through staff to relax the masonry requirements, and the Planning Commission staff recommended denial of that variance, but also that the staff and Planning Commission would like to further add that no billboards would be allowed to be put on this site because it'll be governed by industrial zoning. The Planning Commission and staff recommend approval with staff recommendations of no variance on the masonry requirements and also the elimination of the possibility of a billboard.
The applicant is in the audience. Could you come to the podium? Can you state your name and address, sir?
Yes, sir. Daniel Van Winkle, 2305 Glen Haven Avenue, Midwest City, Oklahoma.
Okay, you heard the staff recommendations. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, we're okay with the staff recommendation.
Any questions or comments from the Horseshoe?
On the outside storage, what is allowed or not allowed?
Hope I'm getting this right. It's outdoor storage would be permitted behind the screening. Yeah, it'd have to be screened, but it would be allowed.
Yep.
So, in the rear of the behind the building.
What type of screening?
It'd be site-proof screening, and site-proof screening is required between it and residential.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And you probably didn't come prepared to answer this, but if you could just give us a rough estimate. About how many customers do you all serve a year?
About 1,400. I mean, we do about anywhere from 100 to 150 cars per month.
The very last page of the PUD, which is the last document before you get to the next agenda item, actually shows a site plan of where the building will go on the piece of property. You can see that there'll be parking, I would assume, for your customers, and on the front side of the, Billy, can you get to that?
It's not in the.
It's not in the. Okay.
No, sir.
So you have parking, I assume, for your customers on the south side of the building, and the storage of your vehicles is going to be probably in the parking area that's shown on the north side of the building, behind the building. Is that correct?
Most of the vehicles will be stored inside at night. That's, we'll have about 69 places inside to store vehicles. We're not going to try to take in any more than 60 cars at a time, rotate them out. So the only cars that would really be outside behind the fencing, area, behind the screening, would be a car that was totaled, that was waiting for the insurance company to come and pick up and take off of our lot, which usually takes anywhere from 2 to 3 days. And so everything would be, screened in behind that, so they wouldn't be able to see. As far as the cars that are in progress, they would all be stored inside, as many of them as we could. If there's a major hailstorm, I could end up with 400 cars on the property at one time, and that hasn't happened in the last 4 years, so 4 or 5 years. So I don't see it. I mean, it could happen at any time, but.
Is there much runoff of the property? Isn't Soldier Creek right there next to it?
You have a tributary to Soldier Creek there. Yeah, okay, that is Soldier Creek, okay.
Personally, I'm in favor of a shop in Midwest City, and we had some pre-discussions, and we're trying to pick up as much retail on 29th Street to where there's more retail. You've got one lot that's zoned the zoning that you need, but obviously there's you need the zoning on 2 more lots. I've been pushing to, have it looked at to see what type of uses we really want along 29th Street. But I'm heavily in favor of your business in Midwest City, but just, we've only got so many, in my opinion, so many locations to have some real good retail opportunities as far as some amenities, and yours is a, amenity that's needed throughout the city. But is there any other locations that could possibly suit you as well and still open that location up for some retail, if that makes any sense?
I've looked for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's about the only place I could find in Midwest City that would work for what I have going. That would be where what I'm trying to bring in here, and I understand what you're saying, but Audi, Porsche customers, stuff like that. There's a need for that on this side of the city, and so that's high retail. That's high customers going to come in and see your city coming through there. I mean, I've got applications in with Porsche, Audi, Jaguar, Mercedes to be the only second certified collision center in Oklahoma City. There's one other one, and I'll be the second one. They only give out 2, and that's going to bring a lot of that clientele to your city to see that. So, as far as finding another area, I've looked for 4 or 5 years. I mean, this isn't something new. I've been trying to get this done for a while, but to find a piece of property that I could put it on that would have enough space, it wouldn't do me any good to build a 10,000 square foot building. I'm in a 10,000 square foot building. I'm at capacity. I don't advertise, and I've got so much work, I can't get it through the door. So I need to actually come up a little bit in space, and the layout of the building that I'm in does not work for how I need it to be done. I basically made it work for the building I'm in. This one was actually designed to be efficient, and actually had PPG, which is a paint manufacturer, help me design it so that that it would be a more efficient building. So really, I don't know of any other place where I could put it at that would be better.
Any further questions? With that being said, the chair to entertain a motion.
I appreciate your business being in Midwest City. I've been to your business in Midwest City personally.
I'm sorry, Susan. This is a public hearing. Does anyone else have any concern about this facility? Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Eads. Go ahead.
That's okay. Same intro applies, but ultimately I move to approve with the limitations expressed by staff, which you've said you're in agreement with, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Let the record show one opposed. Any abstentions? Thank you, Mr. Van Winkle, for being here, and the motion is approved.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen.
Next item is PC 1950, discussion consideration of approving and passing an ordinance amending Appendix A zoning regulations of the Midwest City Code by amending Section 4 use unit classification and regulations, Section 4.4.4 commercial use unit classification and regulations, Section 4.4.4 alcoholic beverage retail sales, Section 4.421 convenience sales and personal services, Section 4.422 drinking establishments, sit-down alcoholic beverages and low point beer permitted, Section 4.4.25 eating establishments, fast food, low point beer permitted, Section 4.4.27 eating establishments, sit-down, low point beer permitted, Section 4.4.28 eating establishments, sit-down alcoholic beverages and low point beer permitted, Section 4.4.29 food and beverage retail sales, Section 4.4.42 participation, recreation and entertainment indoor low point beer permitted. Section 4.4.43, participation, recreation, and entertainment indoor alcoholic beverages and low point beer permitted. Renumbering all subsequent sections in the remainder of Section 4.4 by amending Section 4.92 use chart and provided for repealer and severability. And I need a drink after
And ladies
that.
ladies and gentlemen, this is a prime example of when the state legislature changes something, there's downhill effects to that, and we just changed about 2/3 of our alcoholic ordinances as a result of one state question, so,
So I'm gonna say, just not that you do a bad job, but when your esteemed colleague Pat sat there, he read the entire thing and Guy just sat back and twiddled his thumbs. He likes it when he's the mayor in charge better than you because he has to read all that crap.
well, I'll tell you what. No, I won't go there. Well, then Pat can take over and I can resign. That's what I thought. Okay, with that being said, Mr. Harless, do you have anything to add to all this?
No, just a compliment again to Kelly and Heather and Sarah. I know there was several people trying to incorporate the new law into our ordinances, and I know they spent a lot of time doing that. So appreciate their time and patience on this.
October 1st.
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I thought they could start selling cold beer on October. Okay. I'm paying real close attention to that.
Why didn't that surprise me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, is there any further discussion on this current item? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item.
This is CA 78, discussion consideration of appeal by Global Sign Solutions to Section 9-386C of the sign ordinance, which allows only one sign, freestanding sign per frontage. Mr. Harless?
I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have in the staff report, but add one thing. You know, the sign ordinance has taken some criticism over the years, but it is put in place, and the development, in this case, the strip mall, is it called Lexicord? I don't have that in front of me. Was designed for a monument sign out there, or multi-tenant sign, to be able to advertise for everyone out there. And our concern is that that should this be granted, that additional waivers will be asked for, variances will be asked for additional signs, and would be anticipated that people all over the community would be requesting those variances. So staff recommends, that this not be approved, just for making sure that the sign ordinance stands. And there's been even though the sign ordinance has had a lot of criticism over the years, it has done a lot to clean up the signs within Midwest City and the community, and we hear a lot of compliments on that. And so this is a concern for a long-standing time. So,
Is the applicant in the audience?
Yeah, we have a Mr. Fuller, Mr. Mellon, and Mr. Coleman in the audience that signed up to talk on this item. You want to approach the podium, sir? Or all of you? And could you state your name and address, sir?
I
Thank you.
sure will. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving us the opportunity tonight for this variance. I'm John Fuller. I'm here on behalf of Global Sign Solutions out of 17424 South Union, that's in Mounds, Oklahoma. And we do realize the sensitivity of all ordinances for all cities. We're not here to try to railroad over you guys. What we're asking for is the opportunity for them to have their own pylon sign. The pylon sign for Shipley Donuts has been designed. This company has been in business for 82 years. Over those years, they have moved to a design of their signs that's very, not only aesthetically pleasing, but like other many national chains, it's very easily readable and very distinguished whenever people are traveling up and down the roads, which we feel actually kind of makes it safer for people to be able to get easily off of the road and into a parking lot of a location. Like I said, we're very sensitive to that ordinance. The sign that happens to be already on this site is a multi-tenant monument sign, and the faces in it are less than 2 feet tall, and they're about 10 feet wide. Now, Shipley Donuts, they actually are in 2 of those panels right now on that sign, but the design of Shipley Donuts, the ratio, the proportion of these signs really does not lend to be able to make this sign very readable for Shipley. We actually did our best with what was there, but folks are just having a hard time being able to read this sign and be able to find this location. Yes, they do have signs on their building, but from traveling down the street, they've actually had people make comments that they passed them up or didn't know if they were there. I don't know if you folks have y'all had an opportunity to drive by the new Shipley Donuts?
I drove there yesterday.
Do you feel like that their signs on the building, are they
I drive by it every
pleasing?
day going to work.
I'm sorry?
I drive by it every day going to work.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
there's
sir.
no doubt it's a Shipley's Donut store.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and where the proposed sign goes, it's on the far south side of the building, and to me, it's gonna look like you're gonna turn into McKinsey's instead of where you guys are, because it's right in between McKinsey's and Shipley's Donuts. So I
Okay.
don't know that it's gonna give any more visibility.
Okay.
And everybody in town was real excited when they came in.
Yes, sir.
Everybody knows where they are.
Okay. Well, we would like to extend an offer, and we're, like I said, I've already said it twice, we're very understanding, and we would be willing to, if you guys would give us the opportunity to have a pylon sign, we would be willing to remove maybe a couple of signs that are comparable types of signs on Air Depot that are comparable to this, that you guys may have deemed vacated, or it's just an offer that we would like to extend to you guys.
Appreciate that offer.
So
But
let's-
unfortunately, that particular area of Air Depot is pretty crowded with signs as it is. And it would just make it difficult for us to consider that, or at least for me, consider this. But we would hope maybe you could work with the sign that's currently there and maybe incorporate your company logo in that in the current sign, that the multi-tenant sign out front, and get some consideration from the other tenants. But with that being said, sir, do you have anything to add to this
Yes, sir.
discussion?
Yes.
Just briefly, Scott Mellon from Woodway, Texas. So I would say one of the biggest things we get from feedback from people that come in is that we're hard to find. And from a business standpoint, we opened the unit in April 18th, so just a little over a month. And the traffic count has been below what we projected, and also down from kind of our long-term sustainable projections. And so as we talked as a group, that was one of our big things for this unit, is visibility, ease of access to customers to be able to see the sign from far enough away. Because I think with the sign, what we've seen is if people see it, if they don't already know that we're there, if they see it, they're kind of on top of it and already past it. So I think for us, I mean, ideally, we wouldn't prefer to make an investment into building the pylon sign, but the reason we propose this is we do think it's important for the sustainability of the unit there on Air Depot Boulevard. So
could we're looking at redoing some of our ordinances. What if we just didn't do anything and redid the ordinances and see if they fit under the new ordinances?
I have a question for you,
I've been
Billy.
studying that sign ordinance for about 2 weeks now, and some of the things that we've come into in the past can be easily addressed, but I don't know that this one can. And I don't know that it would be amended to allow any more signs on this frontage. That's the issue we've got, is the sign pollution, for lack of a better term.
Understand.
And I've been working with Billy and his staff on getting some of those cleaned up, Sean, and I just don't know if we could tweak it to the point where we could allow this.
We might not be able to. We probably can't. But that doesn't mean that something couldn't be figured out.
Certainly.
And if that's something that's going to be on the near future that we're looking at,
I'm hoping to get the changes back to council by the end of the summer.
so I mean, we could deny this. Again, it takes 4 votes. There's only 2 of us talking now.
understood. Yeah.
If we denied this, sign ordinance came up, they could come back and ask for another variance because we have a brand new sign ordinance out. If we take no action, it sits out there and just kind of floats around. We get a new sign ordinance that comes up. If it fits under there, they can bring it right back up. They don't have to re-go through planning commission or anything else, do they?
Billy, I have a question. What about the advertising for the store face? I mean, I'm trying to liken this to something out in Town Center, for example. Right off of 29th Street, there's a large sign. It lists all the different stores that are in that area. There's no other sign right in front of each of those businesses, but there is a sign on the storefront type of thing. Is there anything different with regard to the storefront signage, like at the top of the face before you get to the roof line, that can be done or is allowed?
You're talking about on the building itself?
Yes. I'm likening it to Target, JCPenney's in Town Center. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's only one big sign at the front, like what we've got here, that says these are the stores that are in this shopping complex or shopping
I
district.
mean,
if you want to.
there are always things that can be done to try to maximize the visibility. I mean, if you know, the Lennox Plaza and I mean, I don't know how tall that sign is, but even combining the two Shipley's signs there to go into to make it more of a visible thing for their branding, but they have several things on there that they're trying to convey to the customer going down the road. It's not just Shipley's Donuts; it's also Closhie's and coffee and cappuccino and a drive-through and also donuts and then also their logo. And so they're wanting, you know, additional signage on top of that. I don't know what the restrictions are as far as the building. I don't know if they've Kelly, I don't know if you can if they can maximum if they've used their maximum area for that signage.
They're not asking for that in addition to.
No,
We're actually talking about removing the sign, you know, the signage that's on that existing monument sign. So we're not asking for additional signage. We would.
Can they put
So
it?
you
It's
don't
a-
want this at
overall, it's
all. You
additional.
want to put up the sign that you have proposed to us. You're going to take
Can they
everything off
put a
the Lennox.
donut on top of Lennox Plaza?
And I think what you're asking is, can they put something on the building itself?
Right, I'm asking,
more
can they
so-
stick with what they've got on Lennox Plaza, what we're seeing before us here, and then put something on the face front
Of
of
the
the
building.
store?
They already have,
They
they already
already have
have
that.
wall signage on the front of the building.
Billy, could they put their big donut on top of Lennox Plaza, and then you're all on the same existing sign?
Okay, so now, if I'm understanding, we're clarifying this, sorry. I was under the impression you all wanted to have this sign we're seeing before us and add the one that you sent us the graphic on.
Yeah, so what we would propose is if we had approval for the other sign, that we would remove our.
So you're gonna take this one down and put up the other one instead?
But
It stays in one existing
Yes, sir.
sign.
Uh-huh.
Billy,
but to finish answering this question, they're asking for another sign. So this is a sign for the buildings. That there's that 6 slots in the building. So this is a sign for that, and then they're asking for an additional sign for their building. Even if they take this out, that's still an additional sign for the amount of frontage that goes along the road there.
Well,
So
but 1 minus 1 still gets us right back
two
to.
signs.
It'll be 2 signs on one property instead of 1 sign how it sits now.
But if they're taking that away, that goes away. There's only one.
No,
left.
that one
That's one
remains.
sign.
No, he's wanting to take, if Linux
taking the
approved it,
panels
could they
out of
put a
that
donut,
sign.
that big donut on top of the Linux
And then build
Plaza
another
sign?
sign
I don't
specifically
know if
for
I don't know if
his
it busts the height
business.
limitation on it or not.
That
But is
sign
that
would
worth looking at?
remain.
Then they don't have to get anything
Well,
done with us,
I
do they?
mean, but it's, but,
I don't know.
yeah, but I
What
mean,
the
it's
height
not
is.
advertising their
Huh?
business, I guess.
That's a good
is
thought. We
what
could
I'm getting
pursue-
after.
we
So
could pursue
effectively,
looking
I mean,
into
I
that.
think
they're not
I'd
getting
pursue
any
that
advertising
before
out of it.
anything else.
Have you spoke to the owner of the building to move Cashland down and then move you to the top?
We haven't asked for that, just,
And if you did that and incorporated one more panel, would that panel incorporate your entire logo?
I believe so. I think it's the height of the existing sign that's a challenge. The standard Shipley pylon sign is something that is visible from a distance out.
I see.
And about 70% of our customers are, in through the drive-through, back out. So having that visibility from far away has been
Well,
pretty fundamental to the
could I make a suggestion that you
Absolutely.
worked with your landlord and try to, because if you're driving down the street, the orange or the yellow and green sign definitely catches your attention, but if you moved your logo and everything to the top of that, and I think you would probably be leading tenant in that building,
Mhm.
and then incorporate your large logo with those 3 panels to see if that would suffice, and then see what you can work out on that. Is that, I mean, you're the sign guy.
But
Would that be
Lennox
working?
Plaza, if Lennox Plaza does that and 3 other tenants move in, one of them wouldn't have a sign.
What's the overall height of to the top of the Titan Plaza? What's the limit?
The existing, it's approaching 20 feet, that existing sign.
So what's the highest that we could have a sign there?
20 feet.
I think your
Okay.
ordinance is somewhere around 20.
It's 20,
Right,
it's
it's the
20 feet.
maximum. Okay.
Okay.
So putting a donut on top of it. I'd love to.
We've done sillier.
I've done it before. I've done it before.
That's a very compact area. When they
It is.
When they built it, I was surprised that they were going to be able to get that many spots in there. You start adding. I have a business on their depot. Okay, I drive it all the time. I understand the traffic. I understand a sign and what it gets. I also understand the congestion from signs that are there, from everything else that's there. It starts to get too busy too quickly. And it's not just if we just did it for you. Now all of a sudden, what's that place next to you? The McKinsey Muffler. They want another freestanding sign because you got one.
Mhm.
How do we say no on a variance? That's kind of go back to my original, and I'm not promising anything, and you might very well still be no. And I don't know what the rest of the council is, but if we just dial this back, don't take any action, by the end of the summer, if we've taken no action, Guy, or Phil, you're the attorney, we'll ask you. We have the new sign ordinance that comes out, and they want to bring this back up again under the new sign ordinance because it is no action taken. Can they do that without having to jump through all these hoops that they've already jumped through?
Well, if it's set aside, whenever it's brought back up, council has it brought back up, it will be brought back up, comparative to the new ordinance.
Okay. I'm just trying to make it as easy on you as possible. I don't know what the vote's gonna be, but if the vote's no, it's no. But if we don't do anything, we let's see what the new sign ordinance says, then there might be could be.
Let's say
I hate variances.
let's say you had a shopping center that was 5,000 square feet. They're only allowed to have so much signage. Is that right, Billy?
Yes.
Then you got another one that's 45,000 square feet. You only can have that same size, that same amount of sign. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because it is getting congested.
It's for the amount of frontage, and if you have a large shopping center, such as some of them that we've done in the city, they're usually under a PUD, and staff goes through with the developer to accommodate them on special signage issues. This is a fairly small amount of frontage to try to pack a bunch of signs in.
Yeah, but what's some of the other bigger stores that we've done, they have variances to go taller. The one we had a few weeks ago went a little taller. I mean, why couldn't this one go taller to where you can spread some signage out if they're willing to incur the cost?
And are you talking about a sign that they came for a variance?
Yes.
Well, staff recommended no on the variance on that as well, because it is, it leads into more variances for.
Isn't it one sign per 600 feet of frontage?
Yes, sir.
That's a pretty small area, isn't it? Measured out.
Right.
I mean, it was almost the same, really the same scenario a few weeks ago.
I disagree with that.
We would like
The
more
reason-
business, no one sees our business.
The reason we gave the variance the last time is because that sign was down in a gully. And we were trying to raise it up because that was below the grade. This is at grade. So the argument of it being the same is, I don't buy that, because the variance that we gave a couple weeks ago had to do with the fact that that business over there was set down basically in a gully, and the signs were being blocked by trees that they had no control over moving.
But
So that was an extenuating
Their
circumstance.
face was probably 300 or 400 square feet that they wanted to, they already had 300 or 400 square feet. This guy's got like
And so
12.
this is where variances really stink, in my opinion, because you can always find a reason to say, well, we did this over here, or we did this over here. There's a reason that we have ordinances in place. We might not like them, and if we don't, we need to change the ordinances. But willy-nilly going through and saying yes or no, we're going to allow variances, makes it next to impossible for the staff. Now, Jeff and I both sat on the planning commission for a number of years. I think he and I see that maybe a little bit differently. But the harder we make it on the staff, the harder it is for them to write to us exactly staff recommendations. And instead of us giving variances, which makes their job harder, and then in the end, if we say no on a variance, it could very well make it more difficult if we have to fight it in court if we get sued. We need to strengthen up or loosen up our existing ordinances and quit willy-nilly saying we're going to give a variance here, we're not going to give a variance there.
Billy, question. You said something earlier about planned shopping centers.
Planned unit developments.
Thank you. Wherein you make accommodations to those with regard to the signage, is that correct?
Yes.
So does that mean essentially they receive a variance?
No, it's a planned unit development is a more complex development, such as the Warren or the Sooner Rose development. You have a lot of large tenants going in there, competing for frontage, and the Warren is the Warren Theater itself is also competing with areas back in the back. It's a development as a whole, as a shopping center for a large area, and so in that it's developed as a whole, and the signage is taken into consideration as it's developed. And that's what I was saying about this. This is a small parcel of property with limited frontage, and so when it came through on this under the sign ordinance, they permitted the signs to be so much area and so much space for the amount of frontage, the amount of frontage along the street.
Which, bear with me for just a second, brings up this calculation that the mayor was just reciting of, 600 square feet of frontage per.
Just 600 linear feet of frontage, one sign.
One sign, sorry,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you, correct?
Right.
But in a PUD, that's not the strict application that is received, is that correct?
It's taken into consideration.
But
If
it's
there
not
was-
strictly
if
followed,
there was
right?
If there was a new Costco coming in and it had
Mhm.
600 square foot of, or 600 foot of frontage, we would allow one sign along the frontage.
And
Now, if it
actually,
was a
with
P-
the, I'm sorry, Billy.
Yeah, and actually, but if there was more than Costco with a couple of other things in with the Costco, then we would consider maybe doing additional signs like this has additional signs within
Available
the,
for it.
the monument sign or the pylon sign.
Okay, I'm with you. I just wanted to
And
clarify.
actually, with the Warren, the only difference between that and this is the fact that Warren's got a higher sign on his building. And
So let me-
there's going to be one sign out front on 15th Street with a multi-tenant. So there really, we're comparing apples and oranges on that one.
Let me ask the
Let me
applicant-
offer this as a suggestion. We are looking at our ordinance, and I with Pat and, or not Pat, I called
Whatever my
him
name
Pat,
is.
with Sean and Mr. Moore, we have a lot of congestion or sign pollution along Air Depot, and I've been working with Billy and the city manager for 2 years to get this cleaned up, and we're just about there. This is a very short frontage, and we add another sign to it, we're just going to add to our problems. So, with that being said, let us try to work through some of the wickets. I ask that you go back to the building owner to see if you can move your signage up to the top, because obviously you're going to generate, or at least I hope you generate more traffic than Cashland. And then let's revisit this in several months when we have a chance to go through the ordinance and see where, I'm not telling you, and nor am I going to promise you that we're going to change the ordinance to allow any more signs on that short of a footage or short of a frontage.
Why don't we give them a choice? Would
But-
you like us to take no action on this and see what it holds, or do you want us to see
Well,
what the vote?
that's what I
will be?
was getting at. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, just take no action.
We can do one of
Yeah.
two options. We can either have a up and down vote on this, or we can take no action and let it sit out there until we can take a look at the ordinance and see what accommodations can be made, if any, and then invite you back in toward the end of the summer and see what we can do. And also, that would give you a chance to maybe discuss that with the owner of the property and get your sign moved up to the top where you get top billing. Is that fair enough?
It is, and a question about the new ordinance for the signage, do you foresee it being stricter to remove more signs, or not necessarily?
Well, what I will, I'm not going to say that. What I will tell you is that we've had, over the last 2 years, a couple of issues that have come up in which we've allowed things to happen which we may accommodate. I don't foresee adding additional signage to frontage as being one of them. I'm not ruling that out, but again, I would have to talk to the council, I would have to talk to community development and see where we're going to end up.
Okay, I have to ask another question, sorry. We let businesses on 15th Street when it was under construction put those little temporary signs out at the street level type
We
of
did.
thing. Can they request to put those signs out because they're a new business and they, as they mentioned, their businesses their business has not been meeting sort of the metrics that they expected for foot traffic?
We rewrote that ordinance to provide additional signage during construction. Not any time, because that was under construction and their normal traffic flow was interrupted. We allowed them to move signs out further and additional signs until the construction was over. And I think that was the verbiage, if I'm not
Well, that was without
mistaken,
paying
that
the
was the
fee.
verbiage.
Mr. Stroh has
There's
some
no
words to say.
construction going on that roadway.
How about grand opening?
When you rewrote for the temporary signage for the construction, they also did a spot for grand opening permits, which is a free for them. It doesn't give that same type thing, but if it's a grand opening, they do get a free permit instead of the
how
normal
long?
temporary.
Okay.
Kelly, 30 days? 30 days.
So if they haven't exercised,
If they haven't exercised that option,
It would be from the time
It
that they
was-
start. yeah.
Right, it's from their CO.
Yeah.
So
Oh, so it's already gone up because their CO was the 18th
you said you've been there 2 months.
A little over a month.
hey, Mike, real quick though, was it just, can you apply for it still? I mean, I know we waived the fee, I remember that. And you're saying they get a free one for grand opening, but can they apply for that outside of that and agree to pay a fee for that signage?
Yes, the temporary sign ordinance is what I assume you're talking about, and that is, it's a, every utility account that you have, you can apply for 8 temporary sign permits per year, and each permit is good for 1 week. And the cost associated with that is $50 per sign permit, so it would be $50 per week.
Could it be the same sign that you get 4 permits in a row for a month?
Yes.
Yeah, that might be a good near-term solution for us.
Well,
John,
also,
do you have-
I mean, and absolutely, that would be good.
Mhm.
Donut on the building side again, I don't think they even heard it.
Good.
Also, I've been doing signs for them for 20 years. This company is a company that maintains their signs. You won't be seeing their signs dilapidated, or you're talking about sign pollution, that type of stuff. I've been up and down those roads and all kinds of cities, hundreds of cities, and I do realize the
Billy.
sensitivity of your city for that. But they do, this company does maintain their signs. They're very aesthetically designed, and they do keep them in very good repair. So you won't be seeing a sign clutter or pollution from this company. And that comes all the way from the water.
Could I also make maybe not a suggestion, but a question? Kelly, could you come up for a sec?
What's the amount of
So,
square footage that
Councilman
they're
Byrne,
allowed?
you mentioned, you referred to,
Do they count the stone and
a rival, donut shop. And they had small directional signage going into their facility. Would they be eligible to do some kind of a directional signage?
They have several directional signs already on the lot. I took some pictures of those earlier this week.
Okay, they do.
They're very similar to the one at
Okay,
the other
okay.
donut shop.
I guess I haven't seen them when I've gone there. I know where it's at. The best apple fritters in the county, I do believe.
Donuts at least half the year, in the wintertime, it's dark whenever people,
No, that's not my drill. My only other suggestion, and I certainly am sensitive to your corporate strategy and your corporate marketing, but when I look at this sign, I have trouble seeing Shipley's because it's behind that red band, and it's cursive, and everything else is what's the block letters. I just wonder, and I know that you got a standard out there that you do. I just think that sign is difficult to read. It's difficult to see because of the way it's designed, and you may be able to do something. I mean, I'd be more worried about getting the word Shipley Donuts out there than I would donuts, kolaches, coffee, cappuccino. Because
Are you talking about the monument sign or the sign on the building?
I'm talking about the monument sign.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Right.
That's why we would like that for them to have their pylon sign, because that sign.
Well,
But what he's saying is, can you redesign?
Redesign your brand.
Redesign that sign, not the brand, but just redesign that top part where basically I mean, Shipley's Donuts with donuts underneath, it's a little redundant. Could you just do your donut and Shipley's a lot bigger in that first panel?
But we were trying to work with the sign that was already there, the panels that were already there.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Could you make that,
Take a red line on something, I think, I mean, if we just have
and make
brand
Shipley's
Shipley's
larger?
And then donuts with a fingerprint background, I think it would be clearer type of thing.
But isn't that your brand? Isn't that kind of your brand? I mean,
Yeah, Shipley Corporate.
I think we could change it.
What's on the pylon you guys have proposed is just a little,
But-
I can't get it to still, a little donut with words on it.
But this is not a franchise store. This is a corporate store, correct?
This is a franchise.
It is a
Yes,
franchise
sir.
store, okay. So that would be a little more
Yeah,
challenging.
but the Shipley's Donut sign that they proposed isn't in cursive. So if you would take the Shipley's Donuts on that sign, not in cursive, it would probably be able to be seen better. I know, but, I was interpreting for the attorney.
Back to my question. Now, what's the square footage that's allowed on this, Kelly? On the monument sign, if you have less than 600 feet
200 square feet of surface area.
per side?
Per sign is allowed.
I hope when we redo the ordinance, you got 200 square feet. I mean, obviously, you've got, I don't know how many, there ought to be something tied in also to how much square footage you have. Because everybody ought to be able to advertise, and we ought to be able to accommodate somebody's request rather than have them rebrand their brand. It is very small. And then you got a developer that wants to spend some money, build a nice sign, and I would say half of his sign he's using, so he's got some pretty stone, a nice base, and the top cap, but we're penalizing him for building a nice sign. And if he wanted to just stick up the bare minimum, it might not look as attractive, but yet he could have more surface area for advertising. I just hope that we take some of this in consideration, or allow 600 feet, whether he goes taller or what. I mean, I just don't think you should penalize somebody for building a nice sign.
Okay, but
A monument sign.
Al, my question to you is, since we're having this discussion, is what would we change on this sign? Make it, allow it wider?
Well, I'm just saying, if
taller?
it's 600 square feet, let it be the print part. And if he wants to build, and have some minimums, I mean, he couldn't build, but a certain percentage, but
And I'm
a
asking that
larger
for input.
surface. And, or do you even count the monument part? I'm just saying, maybe we do need to increase the size, be able to go a little taller and tie back in. I mean, if a guy's only got 5,000 square feet of rentable space, then he's not gonna need as much signage if you have larger, if you have 20 or 30,000 square feet.
But all that goes back to the discussion just a few minutes ago, that all of those are good points, but that's for a future sign ordinance, and that's not something that we can fix right now, nor should we with the variance.
Well,
Well, maybe we should
I
table
think
it.
we've discussed a couple of options. And is there any further discussion on this current item? With that being said, the chair would entertain a motion.
How about no motion?
No action.
With no action,
Wait a second, we did ask you guys a
particular
question earlier.
discussion item
Ma-
is tabled.
Matt, we asked them a question earlier that they never answered. You
Mhm.
we gave them two options, to let us go for the vote, or
Mhm.
to take no action.
Yes.
But we're at that point now, we don't ever say to somebody, hey, tell us if you want us to vote or not.
Yeah.
But we are now. Do you want us to take a vote, or do you want us to?
Yeah. Can you guys give me kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down of how you're going to
That's
vote
Pauline.
before I
You
answer
cannot do
before I
it.
answer the question?
Thank you.
Hey, Ed, excuse me for just a second. I
Yes,
need
sir.
to ask staff a question. Kelly, on these, do we not notify the abutting property owners? Okay, so that part of that application process is to let the abutting property owners know that there is a request pending.
So we can just send it out to those people within 300 feet next time anyway, as well.
Well, we don't send it out to the property owners within 300 feet. We send it out to the abutting property owners.
Well, then we can do that. Again.
Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
just.
Do you want us to do nothing, or do you want us to take a vote and see how it comes out?
If there's a sense that it would change in the future, then we're open to, just
I
in
don't
terms
have
of
a
the
clue.
ordinance as a whole, not considering our specific case, then we'd be open to delaying, but.
And they are allowed to bring this all before us again. It just
Sure
has
they
to
are.
start from the bottom up type of thing. So if you ask us to vote now,
Mhm.
and it doesn't turn out favorably to you,
Mhm.
I'm looking at Billy for this type of, sorry, I know, I mean, I know it increases, the burden on staff, but again, you can bring it back through the channel, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a $60 application fee, I believe, in order to bring this forward.
Sure.
So you would have to pay that again, but I mean,
Okay.
you can.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer a vote, just for the sense of giving us some direction on what we need to do, because I do understand, I appreciate you bringing it up, I do understand where you're coming from. I think for us, we're trying to think strategically
understand.
about, hey, how do we
mean,
make
as
sure we're,
I think you can tell that we try to work with our
yes,
businesses.
sir, yes, sir.
And I'm unfortunately going to make a motion to deny the variance.
Mhm.
Okay, and I'm gonna say that, just to clarify, I would be supportive of this if we were on the same physical sign.
Me too.
Location. Even if it required a variance on the same physical sign location. But the idea of putting another sign to the south, I'm sorry, I don't support, gentlemen. And I do
Understood.
thank you for being businesses and doing business in Midwest City. But if there's another way to do it, and there's another way to utilize other, even temporary signage, if it came back to us differently,
We had a car dealership a year ago that wanted a variance on one of theirs. We said no, and when they got with the sign people, lo and behold, a month later, they'd figured out how to do it within the existing sign and not have to have an ordinance.
Understood.
So with that being said, I do have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye, and this is in favor of denial.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions?
sorry, double negative
Okay, we need a roll call vote, City Clerk.
Ward 1. 2. 3. 4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
6.
Nay.
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen, for enduring this.
No, thanks for
And,
taking the time.
This will also give you some time to maybe look at some options that
Mhm.
fall within the ordinance, maybe work with the property owner to redesign that monument sign.
Yep.
And then we're going to be looking at this ordinance, obviously, and we'll see what comes down the road.
Got it. Thank you for the time tonight. I appreciate it.
And by the way, thanks for bringing Shipley's to Midwest City. We really appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for hearing.
Mayor,
I'm
if I-
sorry,
if
could
I
we
could
have a 5-minute recess, please? 5-minute recess, please.
What were you
Yes,
going to
ma'am, we
executive
can.
session? Are we giving?
Recess for 5 minutes.
Giving the total.
Hey, go back to that picture, Billy. That real estate sign in front is in violation, I bet. See that real estate sign?
Violation.
Well, you're not supposed to have one in the right of way, right?
I think so.
Huh?
I don't believe
So how long has that been there?
You're not supposed to have one?
I don't believe so. I'm not.
Well, who
I
does
didn't want to
that?
put
Is
Michael
that-
on the spot, but yeah, it's in violation.
Where's my-
Guess what me and you would be doing this summer?
You know, though, Christine, if the city owns the property, they're totally okay with having a whole lot of signs.
I know, that is so.
Discussion item number 6.
This is discussion consideration of an update of the status of the public improvements and modifications and expansion of private detention pond facility servicing the Turtlewood Section 6 subdivision and the existing eastern detention pond facility serving the other sections of the development. You have a memo from the city engineer kind of recapping the situation as it has progressed from several months ago, and staff would be happy to answer any questions. I believe there are some folks in the audience, probably from the Turtlewood edition, that may want to come speak to the council as well. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to approach the city council on this subject? If you would come up and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Dan Myers. I'm at 2413 Turtlewood River Road. I guess our primary concern still stands with the fiduciary responsibility for some of the outstanding issues that I think were originally presented to the council in March 13th, if memory serves me correctly. My understanding is that there was a meeting with you, sir, yesterday to discuss the issue. I've seen a drawing, of their proposed addition to the eastern wall. I guess my biggest concern is it does nothing to address our underlying concern, which is the failure of the primary wall. What they're proposing is to build an additional masonry wall 12 inches in front of it, but it does nothing to address the fact that the primary wall is still failing. This has been an issue since March of last year. So it took from March until September to get the wall fixed at a cost of $6,000 to the HOA. Sir, I also understand that they're proposing separating the plats. So plats 1 through 4 would be its own entity as an HOA, and then plats 5 through 7. So speaking in fiscal terms, that raises a concern based on a letter from our then representative, Zia Munir, saying that the projected profits for the HOA were expected to increase incrementally over time based on additions to the neighborhood to help cover the cost of this wall. That appears to no longer be a factor. It seems like the number of houses and the number of dues-paying members to the HOA would be capped, essentially. So in terms of assessing any type of additional annual fee to our HOA dues in order to cover the cost for a proposal that does nothing to address our original concern and the fact that we as homeowners still have no voting power within the HOA to discuss how our money is being spent is a major concern. I guess my final concern, sir, is the fact that I've got 2 records requests on file about the status of the original permits for that eastern wall. When I asked about the wall and I also asked for the permit on the retention basin itself, I was told that no such permits existed. That's a concern to me. I'm curious who the engineer was that ultimately signed off on the original design. I'd be curious to know how many hundreds of thousands of pounds of pressure from approximately 12 houses' backyards were designed to be withstood by a single layer of railroad timbers.
Patrick, you want to address that one issue?
Yes, sir. That is accurate. The developer at the time, Home Creations, built that eastern wall out of the timbers without a permit. They did it as a landscaping feature. They didn't come in. They didn't notify the city. They put that in without an engineer drawing submitted to the city. So as far as a pursuit on who did the original design on that, that was with a different engineering company that Home Creations used at that time. It was MGR Engineering. They no longer exist. The principal engineer that did the design is deceased. SMC has took over that development, is their current representative, and is representing them now with all the standards and such for the development. Unfortunately, with that wall, and at that time, it was done without the city's prior knowledge.
City go back on that? If they have to have a permit by ordinance and they didn't do it, is there anything the city can do to hold those people accountable to make them go in there and fix it?
Yeah, at the time, it was under the height that a wall had to be permitted.
So they didn't,
under.
so I guess I
And,
misunderstood you then. So they didn't need a permit to do that then, right?
Well, that's the gray area on it. Some of that wall is much taller than it should be.
Okay, so they would have needed a permit to do.
Yes.
Okay. Can the city go back in against,
I don't have the legal background to tell you, you know, as far as someone putting a structure on private property, do we have the authority to remove it? Do we have the authority to make them retrofit it and bring it up to code? That's really outside of my expertise. I wish I could answer that and tell you.
That'd be more of a legal.
You know, I have a hard time.
answer.
There was a lot of, I mean, I don't know how I can get past there's an addition at Northeast 10th and Westminster. I think there's some pretty big walls. They're using like chicken wire, heavy chicken wire with rock. Is that an approved? But you see some things sometimes that I just don't know how some of that can be overlooked.
Well, I agree in theory, but there's a lot of construction. There's a lot of things going on all over the city, and some things do get overlooked, and we don't find them until they're in place. And some people aren't always forthcoming with what they are doing on their property, and we find out after the fact. So
Mr. Menifee, if I may ask a question, just for the record, in your professional opinion, would that be considered a landscaping feature or a structural feature based on the design of the wall and its intended purpose?
again, that's hard to say because it was never permitted as a structural feature. It's more of a landscaping feature. I think in the original intent, it was put in to help flatten out the backyard so the fencing and what was put in with the original couple of sections would have a more usable backyard, but the original design did not have a wall incorporated into it. It was simply supposed to slope down from the houses all the way to the pond's water level.
Okay, let me ask a question, Patrick. So this plan that we received, Turtlewood Edition, Section 4, I'm assuming this is part of something more elaborate than this single page, is that right?
Well, yeah, as we said before at the pre-council, that's all that we've received so far.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, that wouldn't be sufficient for a building permit. That doesn't have any locations, that doesn't have any structural elements tied to it to let us review.
I guess I was just looking at it, they've titled it as a retaining wall here on the document. And so that would be to go over the existing wood retaining wall.
Well, that
Is how they've labeled it on the diagram. And so bear with me for 1 second. Here's my question coming at you. So, I mean, I think their intent was that they wanted it to be a retaining wall. The fact, if we know it exists out there now and it's over the height that's allowed to exist without a permit, then riddle me this, anybody, Phil, somebody, why is it we can't go in and force them to take it down, permit it properly, since they did it wrong in the first place? The person who purchased the property, private property, right adjacent to my house, they put in a brand new driveway. The driveway did not comply with code ordinances. They were required to tear out all of that brand new concrete and re-pour it, reset it to code specifications. How is this any different? I mean, I'm missing something, I guess.
Well, and I understand your question, but like I said, I wish I was more of a property rights expert on how to enforce those violations, but unfortunately I can't tell you when we have the authority to go onto someone's property, remove some type of structure or a driveway or a roof or anything that wasn't permitted through the city. That would be someone else's question to answer.
Yeah, and there was a meeting with the developer, and in that meeting. Hey, sir, you speaking to the microphone, please? We can't hear you back. Yeah, I'm sorry. You hear me now? Gotcha. Okay. There was a meeting with the developers Monday, and where they was briefing staff on what they wanted to do to correct the issues of that wall. This design is showing the basic concept, it is from a professional engineer. And also in the briefing notes they gave us, they advised that an independent engineer has designed a retaining wall along the east boundary of the East Pond, and Home Creations will gift the homeowners association $58,860 based on the received estimate to build the concrete retaining wall. So they have taken steps, and they are looking at donating $58,860 to do that concrete retaining wall. So to me, in my meeting with them, the questions asked by staff, they are taking steps to correct that issue.
But, and I say this, but the plan that we've got, which is just, again, a one-page document, is they're going to build a wall that is going to be in front of the existing wood retaining wall, which we've all agreed is going to rot out over time. Then there's going to be a gap between the existing wall and the old railroad ties that have rotted out over time. Why can't we force them to take out the wood wall and build this right to start with, which is how it seems they should have done it in the first place?
Patrick.
And, bear with me for 1 second,
Okay.
and again, Phil, this goes back to my comment from pre-council. This whole, we're gonna pay $58,860 based upon the estimate to build the concrete retaining wall. That doesn't include any overages. That's a flat, take it or leave it kind of situation, which can leave these folks in a situation where it doesn't fix the problem.
Okay.
But
Mr.
there
Anderson.
could be some questions of whether or
Pat-
not they did include that overages in that estimate. We don't know.
Patrick, didn't you say yesterday,
They also have to
or you
permit-
indicated yesterday that before they proceed with this plan that you got on your desk yesterday afternoon or Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock, if they proceed with that plan, they're gonna have to submit drawings. And you're gonna have to sign off on those drawings, architectural renderings. And if they do that and request a permit, can you make it a part of the approval process to take out the old wall and put up the new?
Well, that will be certainly a concern of ours, probably our main one. I don't know what their course of action is yet.
Okay.
That's why I feel a little bit hindered.
Well,
They hamstrung us
you're
with
put
it.
on the spot, I understand it. Sir, we did have a meeting Monday, and basically it was just an overbrief of what they had done so far and to bring us up to speed on what they had planned. We got a one-page architectural rendering of what they had planned. Obviously, there's going to have to be a lot more put into it before they proceed with that. And also, throughout my discussions with Mr. Providence, your kind of pseudo-representative, I guess, he indicated that you, the group has retained or talked to legal counsel as far as your proceedings on forward. Is that
Sir, do
my
you mean the
understanding?
homeowners?
Yes,
So
the homeowners.
I, as an individual, have consulted legal counsel. Speaking with other neighbors in the development, we've chosen to not pursue that up to this point, just based on some of the costs involved.
I understand.
If I may, sir, speak to the estimate portion that you discussed yesterday. Home Creations got a bid from Father and Son. Father and Son is the original contractor that built the eastern retaining wall, and then also the western retaining wall, which is of masonry, because it was put in after the new ordinances were adopted. The northwest corner of the new retaining wall is already beginning to fail, and it so happened that the portion of the wall that failed on the east side of the retention basin last year was my next door neighbor. Father and Son was out repairing that portion of the wall in September. I had an opportunity to speak with the owner in person, and he acknowledged that even at the time they built that wall originally, they knew that it was not going to last more than a few years. In fact, he was surprised that it lasted as long as it did. So the fact that that bid was solicited from the same contractor, I would call into question the ethics of that decision and the honesty of that bid when it comes to structural integrity.
I'd like to say one more thing. And best I remember, some of that wall's there might even be a few spots that's 5-6 feet tall.
Yes, sir.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
And then this drawing is not to exceed 24 inches. to me, they're pretty far off. And then it sounds like they're wanting to hand this over to the homeowners and let them contract it out. And, you know, that could be a problem. Liability issues then rely on the homeowners, then it's you built it. And so, you know, that's.
But if the contractor, whoever they are, they have insurance, so whatever they.
Good luck.
No, ma'am. He is correct.
Oh, okay.
Their intentions 100% is to basically give us a $59,000 check.
Okay,
and
sir, I'm sorry, could you state your name and address just
Yeah,
for the record?
my name's Dustin Hart. I live in the Turtlewood Addition, 10505 Southeast 25th Street. Speaking to Jeff Moore's point that he made, that is Home Creation's intent, is to cut us basically a $60,000 check and wipe their hands of the situation. So I just wanted to advocate that because I sat with them in a meeting yesterday for about 2 hours, and we went over the drawing that you have there. Basically what we were told is that they're going to leave the railroad ties, they're going to put up this concrete wall, they're going to fill it in with some dirt. This gentleman right here, Chris Ramsier, is a top-notch engineer from OU. He's the one that designed this. I put a phone call into him today 3 different times. I have not received a phone call back. Made it very clear who I was and the reason why I was calling. Again, I'll continue to call. I also asked for the quote that Home Creation has, and that's how we learned that it was the previous retention wall builder. Again, we haven't had a chance to speak with them, and even if we were to pursue that option, I mean, as a city, like you just had a company come in here who's asking to build a new sign, and if they build that new sign, can you not force them to take it down? She had a neighbor who built a driveway that wasn't built to city code. They were forced to tear it out. Here it is that you have a home builder who has built homes on landscape timbers as identified by your city engineer. And the question is whether as a city whether you can force them to take it out or not. I'm kind of baffled by that. I mean,
I think what he said was he's not familiar with the law.
Well, no,
And he's not sure
but
if
he
that
also
could.
said that it's not, in his professional opinion, is it a structural retention wall, or is it designed to be a landscape wall, which is clearly 2 different load-bearing capacities, correct?
I'm not an engineer, so I have no idea. I would assume, but I
Okay.
have no idea.
Then, as she pointed out, this is an existing retaining wall that the city doesn't have a permit for. So why can't we force the builder to bring it up to code?
Well, as you mentioned, I think he mentioned that when they go forth with this, they will have to obtain a permit. So that way, he would have the drawing, and he can look. Am I correct, Billy? Excuse me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did say they would have to obtain a permit in order to go for this building, retaining this wall, brick wall.
If they come in and build a new retaining wall, they'll have to get a permit.
Right.
And just for clarification, years ago when the first the wooden retaining wall was installed, there was a height of a 4-foot minimum height on that, and so that was changed to a minimum of 2 foot in height at a later date, which has changed again that all retaining walls have to be engineered, and so the ordinance has changed, and what you see is the developer building to the minimum standards that were out there at the time. Did they go over that in some places? Yes, they did, but as far as going out and make them rip out the whole wall, I don't know. I mean, they're going to be resistant to that.
Even if
That's why they didn't get. That's a maintenance issue, and maintenance issue is a whole other deal. It's like somebody's fence falling down. To the city to go out and get in the middle of a fence falling down, it's a maintenance issue like other things that are maintenance.
So
The maintenance of the.
Sir, if I may, I'd like to address that. So my records request was actually 2-part. I asked about the permit for the retaining wall, and I also asked about the permit for the basin itself. My understanding is that the retention basin has to comply with EPA standards, and that would be overseen by the Department of Stormwater Quality. Is that a true statement?
As far as my knowledge, yes.
So I was also told that the basin itself, meaning the grading of those banks, was never approved by an engineer. Is that a correct assertion based on the fact that there was no permit on record?
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? I apologize. Bear with me, okay?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
in fairness, I haven't seen any of this before this evening, okay? I'm not sure that our city engineer saw any of this before at least
4 o'clock
yesterday
yesterday afternoon.
Afternoon, thank you, sorry. Here's my request, y'all. I mean, I understand your frustration, I completely get it, okay? But I guess I would kind of like to make a motion, just kind of moving through it here, that we request y'all's indulgence for like a continuance period for like 30 days, okay? Let these folks, the city attorney, the city engineer, look at this, get additional information. You make your phone calls to the engineer. I mean, you're well within your rights to do what you're doing, type of thing, and communicate with these folks. And let's ask the city attorney to figure out exactly what we as a city are entitled to do to try to help you solve the problem that you got. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. I would very much appreciate that. The only concern I have is they expressed interest in trying to release the responsibility of the existing HOA within the next 10 days.
Well, let me offer this to you. Somebody's got to sign for that sucker.
Hey,
Okay, and they're gonna have to develop a group of people to take that over, and if they fail to do that, obviously they can't sign it over. So, as long as there's contentious issues, you know, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that correct? You're gonna have to have a group of people that are willing to take it over and assign it to.
we're getting an area that I'm uncomfortable with, and I want to ask Phil real quick. The reason I'm uncomfortable with it, the HOA and the home and the builder, this is a civil contract. We're talking about the actual retaining wall. I'm not dismissing, but I want to make sure that we're not trying to get in between a civil contract between two. I think we need to refrain from discussing turning over to the HOA or not, because that's between two outside entities. I think that the idea that Susan has, they have identified it as a retaining wall on their own paperwork here as a retaining wall. Now let Phil go in and look and see what our legal, what we can get them to do legally to fix that without giving you a $59,000 check. Just see if we can get them to fix it, because this wasn't permanent.
Well,
but when it comes to the HOA, Phil, am I right or am I wrong on we need to be very careful when we're talking about
that issue's already been brought up, and we told them in our last meeting that it is a civil contract
we were wandering into the depths of the HOA and handing it back off.
And
so I'm trying to keep us on.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that was the point I was trying to make.
If I could add to your question, your answer, it depends on, I think, how the HOA is written. If it's once a certain percentage of that part sells, 80, 90%, 60%, I think whatever they state, then it goes.
I can't remember.
They can assign it to the
Sir,
HOA.
per our CCRs, it's 75%. What they have failed to define is 75% of what, which plats, to be more specific.
But my point too is it should possibly, does it say anything in there? I think, I'd hate to see them divided out, as long as it's the same developer, where you've got 4 HOAs within the same developer in the same addition. I kind of think that there's maybe some reasons that he's doing that. I don't know if it would be to the development and to the city's best interest. All I know is, can we look at that and see if he's allowed to do that, is all I'm saying.
Well, I can look into that, but keeping in mind that homeowners association and what they're giving them and what they're not giving them, that is between the landowners and the developer, not the city. What the city can do and enforce is if they did build their retaining wall, it wasn't permitted, and it wasn't built to code because of permit, we can address things like that. And so that's what I told the mayor that I'll look at, and we can talk to the developer again. You know, and maybe I can talk to their attorney and talk about, instead of donating the money, that they actually build this concrete retaining wall that they're saying will remedy the problem, instead of giving them money and it not being enough, that they go ahead and take care of that. But as far as the agreement, I don't think the city is proper to get involved between the homeowners and the HOA and the developer. That's a civil action between them and their attorneys.
Yeah, but
And just to
Can the
clarify,
city
that
not
wasn't
have
what I
some-
was asking for.
Okay, I just
mean,
wanna make sure.
Just so we're all on the same page, that is not what I was asking for.
Because I think we're overstepping
okay?
our bounds
What I
if
was
we start
asking
getting
for
involved.
is to continue this agenda
have
item for
jurisdiction.
30 days in order to allow you to work with Patrick to figure out about this previous retaining wall, and whether we can require them as a city, if it wasn't properly permitted, to rip that sucker out and install it correctly from the get, type
And
of thing.
actually, this is basically for information only, so there's no action required on this agenda.
No.
We could direct the city manager to bring this back before the council in 90, 60 days and get an update on what the legal opinion was.
I was gonna be polite and move for it, but I mean, I'm good with directed.
You really don't need any action on it because it's informational, but,
And gentlemen, be aware, please be aware that we're cognitive of this issue, and we continue to work with it, and we will continue to follow it. But we're, you know, on legal ground that in some areas we can be in, and some areas we can't be in. And keep in mind, the original PUD for your homes was submitted, I believe, in 2004. But it's been on the books for quite a while, so, and now this is 3 councils removed from when this was actually approved, so now we're dealing with the issues that were approved almost 20 years ago. So we will continue to get updates, and we'll continue to update the council on what our legal grounds are, and try to work with all parties involved. Fair enough?
Yes, sir, and if you would ask the manager to please go ahead and, bring this forth at the next meeting,
Yes, sir.
we would very much appreciate it.
One question, was your information request not fulfilled?
Sir, it was fulfilled. The initial, so I submitted 2 information requests. I think the first I was a little misleading on the wordings. The assumption was that I was referring to the retaining walls in the side yards. So I filed a second follow-on request just to clarify.
And it was fulfilled to your satisfaction?
Yes, sir. The email that I received in response was that no records of any type existed related to my question.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, and I've slept 2 or 3 times since the last time they were here, but I vaguely remember that we told those people that if there was another meeting with the city and the contractors, that they would be invited to it.
I was in contact with Mr. Providence, and this was one of those last minute deals where they just popped in. And I've been in email contact with Mark Providence, who was their spokesperson, and brought him up to speed on what was discussed. And they received at the meeting, I understand y'all received the list of things that they have done last night.
It's perspective of
completed
or not.
It was a list.
It was a
okay,
list.
And so
but
all
Mr.
the information that
Mr. Mayor.
shared with us was shared with Mr. Providence.
Mr. Mayor, if I may say.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Providence wasn't aware of the meeting. You didn't make him aware or make any of us available to the 3 o'clock meeting. Had we known about it, or had we been extended an invite,
And
we
in
would have
my
been here.
email to Mr. Providence, I did apologize for that, but it was one of those last-minute deals that was dropped on us. And I apologized.
Even with last-minute meetings, if you let us know, somebody will be present.
I will,
And that was
I will
something you
try.
promised us
I
the
will
last
do my
time.
best. You know,
The last question I have, your opinion today, is there any way that I can get that in an email form?
Sure, if you would reach out to me,
Yeah.
email your questions to me, I'd be more than happy to send those back in written form.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time this
You
evening.
bet. Thank you.
And just, when I contacted the developer I did invite them to the meeting. They said they would be here tonight.
Yes,
but they
that should be noted as
obviously
well.
they
So they're,
changed their mind.
yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now move into the new business. I'm sorry.
We got to talk about the pond to the east as well.
I'm sorry?
We're going to discuss the pond to the west as well.
No.
The neighbors to the west are the actual ones that raised this up.
The west side of Turtlewood Development.
More step up the mic, you can't hear what you're saying right back there.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
Just, as you saw in the memo, really no action has taken place on the ground out there yet. They've been submitting updated
Right.
engineering plans for that pond to expand it, to relocate the outfall to the old railroad corridor like we've discussed. But they haven't actually started doing the work on the ground yet.
On the west pond?
Yes, sir.
On the west pond.
Okay. Do you have a possible ETA? Because as of right now, the way it stands, when it rains, that thing floods.
Yes, sir. I wish, unfortunately, like Mr. Harless just stated, Home Creations was supposed to be here to speak for themselves on those things, and unfortunately not here, so I can't give you exact dates. I'm hoping that they're going to be starting real soon.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we move into new business public discussion of our agenda. Does anyone have anything to bring before the council as new business? That being said, we do have an executive session.
Executive session is discussion consideration of one entering into executive session as allowed under 25 OS Section 307B2 to discuss negotiations concerning employees and representatives of the employee groups, and 2, an open session authorizing the city manager to take action as appropriate based on the discussion in executive session.
Chair to entertain a motion.
Move to go into executive session.
I have a motion.
I have a second.
I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in executive session.
Aye.
What? Make a motion that staff
Recommend.
There we go. We recommend the city manager to take actions appropriate.
Abstention. Motion carries. Further discussion for the Midwest City Council. Here, young, hereby adjourn to call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority. We have a consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. New business public discussion. Anything to come before the council? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. Call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We have consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Discussion item?
Authority Investment Performance Review for the period ending March 31, 2018, and action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy, guidelines, and objectives.
Is there any discussion on this item?
We would like to, have you got it? Okay.
Make a motion to follow the recommendations given to us by our financial advisor, Harold, as it relates to the liquidation of bank card fixed income funds, placed in money market. That's how it works.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? New business and public discussion? Hearing none, I need a motion to go into executive session.
This is,
Second.
Discussion, the executive session will be discussion and consideration of entering into an executive session